I wish I had an electric guitar. I'd be... Everybody, hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Chase Jarvis Live. It's going to be a hell of a show. Very, very excited that you all here in the live studio audience and you folks out there in the internet. Phew, you saw the banter in the social media channels about our special guest today. We've got Guy Kawasaki. Give me just a second before I bring him on. I got a little housekeeping, some exciting housekeeping. First of all, there was a contest going on, retweeting the link to the blog post to get a signed copy of Guy Kawasaki's Enchantment, which was one of my favorite books when it came out. I've got a couple others favorites now, maybe one of the ones that he just finished. And two folks won that. One is Erudite Photo, quote, "For a girl's night out, what's better than some chase with," you guys totally hijacked me on this one. "For a girl's night out, what's better than some chase with your vodka and a guy to hang out with?" Bum, bum, shh, that's very good. That goes to Erudite Photo. You get a book, signed book from Mr. Guy Kawasaki. And the other winner is Hanley Robert, the Michael Jackson of photography. What? The Michael Jackson of photography and renowned author / yogi, Guy Kawasaki, dropped knowledge. So you guys each get a signed copy of Enchantment. Thank you very much for playing with that contest. Phew, I want to thank the folks that make all this possible. A huge shout out to Broncolor and B&H. And for the first day, we're introducing a new supporter that I'm very, very psyched about. HP has come on board, and they've come on board in the most beautiful, organic way. I want to give you a little backstory, which is going to segue into the contest that starts right now. Been working with those guys on a film about the removal of print. The film's called, it's a working title, 7 Days Without Print. I went into a town, a Midwest town, and removed the print and saw how people behaved and learned a lot about it. So it's a fascinating project. It's in edit right now, and starting right this minute, if you hear some cool quotes between either myself or Guy, it's anything you'd like, and you retweet that, plus the URL to this live page right here if you're watching the internet, and at HP Print, that's HPP Print, HP Print, that will allow you, we will pick the coolest quote that you guys requote, or that you guys retweet, and the winner of that contest will be announced at the end of the show. 2 tickets anywhere in the world to New York City with me, dinner, and a screening of this film. It's going to be very, very exciting. So I don't even know what the value of that is, in the many thousands. So be active and help spread the word so we can make a cool show today. So the more people are participating. Don't forget hashtag CJLive for all your questions. We'll be taking them from Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Let me check my checklist here, make sure I got everything. Phew, how'd I do, producers? Thumbs up? Okay, thanks very much. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Hi, buddy. Good to see you. Please. It just keeps going, the applause.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It's never going to stop, the applause. The people out there on the internet, maybe you're up there. There you are on the internet. I got Guy Kawasaki here. You guys are so cool with that. Yes. Flew in. What time did you get in? Like midnight or 2 o'clock?
Later. My kids had a lacrosse game that ended at 9:15 in Palo Alto, so I had to catch a 10:45 flight from SFO, which landed here at 12:45, and by the time you get here, it's like 1:30. So.
Well, thank you so much for braving it. And I know you're out of here as soon as we're done. The life of a rock star. Gosh, where do we start? I was trying to think how you and I met, and I can't remember. Do you remember?
It was a dark and stormy night. I don't, I don't remember.
No, I think maybe it was Scoble who introduced us, or I have no idea.
At some point, everything filters through Scoble.
That's right. Scoble universe.
That's how Barack Obama met Michelle Obama.
Not literally, everyone. That's a joke. Gosh, but so. You are so many things. Like, I like to think of myself as really active. I'm a photographer and a director, an entrepreneur, but like you take that number of hyphens and you like triple it. So
no, that's not true.
It's true.
It is not true.
So I got you down as a New York Times bestselling author. I've got you down as a social media guru. I got you down as a venture capitalist. I got you down as a keynote speaker, Apple evangelist. You're the first Apple evangelist to receive jobs. Like the list just goes on. So what am I missing from that list?
Maybe I don't do any well. So maybe that's why.
No, you do all of them.
But you know, fundamentally, I define myself as a father. I mean, that's like, you know, father first.
That's so touching. Now, I hope your kids at home are watching. That's really cool.
No, they could care less. So I define myself as a father, and you know, part of being a father is providing for my family. So the other things, the speaking, the writing, the promoting, you know, the pimping, whatever else, it's to fulfill my fatherhood role.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I practiced that all night.
That's good. And you've got a long list of professional accolades under your belt, in addition to being an amazing father. The author is the one that is probably the most resonant with the community that I run around with. I've read, you've got 11 books now, right?
Yep.
10 with the 11th, the new one we're going to talk about in just a second.
Yep.
What the Plus, Google Plus for the rest of us.
Yep.
So 11 books.
Yeah, who would have thought, huh?
You write like one a year, don't you? Is that
no, you know, I write, the clock started in 1987. So
wow,
from 1987 till today, it took, you know, that many years to write 11 books. I had a really great high school English teacher. I mean, AP English. He really was tough. We would have to write these essays, and then he would go over it, and he would circle a mistake. And if there was a mistake, a grammatical mistake, you know, not having an Oxford comma or something, so you'd have to write the sentence incorrectly as you wrote it. You'd have to cite the rule in this grammar book that we use and write the rule. Man, it shows a lot of white hair in that camera. Where was I?
Put on the dark hair filter, Scott. Put on the dark hair filter.
And then you rewrite the sentence correctly. So it was very traumatic to make a grammatical mistake. And his name was Harold Keebles. He was one of the fundamental great influences in my life. He's dead now, but you know, I think if he saw that I wrote 11 books, he would be just cracking up. I don't think, you know, he's like, this good-for-nothing, lazy, you know, lousy student who's written 11 books. You know, where did I go wrong? So,
and he made that lousy list called the New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah, well, you know, once in my life. That's a funny thing, you know. It's something that you think, oh, God, you know, to be a New York Times bestseller. And then it happens, and like, all right, so, you know, my kids still don't care. I mean, they're like, you know.
That's your measuring stick.
Right.
Your kids
take me to the toy store or Target. They don't care. If I made a New York bestseller list yesterday, it's a very interesting world I live in.
Fair enough, fair enough. I'm, however, an avid reader. I started, the first book of yours that I read was Rules for Revolutionaries.
Yeah.
The one I just dove super deep on was Reality Check. Reality Check, for those of you who haven't read it, that is, I mean, how would you sum that up for me in a sentence or two?
Reality Check is, to that point, everything I figured out in my life about entrepreneurship and marketing. One unfortunate thing is the book was written prior to social media. So there's nothing in there about social media, but it's everything else that I had. So one of my heroes in writing is Peter Drucker.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
Peter Drucker, towards the end of his career, wrote a book called Management. And in that, he put everything he had. So you know, he started off with The Effective Executive, and then he had a bunch of these books. But Management was the, I don't know, 700-page tome. And so Reality Check was my weak attempt at emulating Peter Drucker's Management.
Well, it's not weak at all, man, because I actually have appreciation for the fact that I didn't have any social in it, because every book has expertise in social media these days. You've written a definitive guide on Google+. We'll talk about that in a second. But one of the things that I loved as a creative is so much of that, the business side of that book applied to the business side of being a creative. And you know, I mean, you're an author. That's a very, very creative pursuit that we either need to have really work hard to educate ourselves in business, or have some business people within our organization to help us do well. And all the stuff that I took away from Reality Check, I'll thank you right now. Put an extra zero in my bank account the other day. But really appreciate it. I just want to shift gears into the most recent one, which boy, what the plus, Google Plus for the rest of us. It's like this beautiful little poem too. So, like, what was the impetus behind writing it?
Well,
Come on. I mean,
I had no intention of writing a book. I wrote Enchantment.
These other 10 before it were just accidental.
No, I mean, you let me finish. Don't interrupt the guest.
All right.
I had no intention of writing a book after Enchantment. And what happened was, summer of 2011, I came upon Google Plus. And it was like, the only other experience in a product sense that was equally moving for me was the first time I saw Macintosh. First time I saw Macintosh is a freaking religious experience. You know, the clouds parted, angels started singing. It was really religious. And I had, I hate to tell you.
Yeah.
You know that's an Apple II, right?
I do. This predates the Macintosh.
That's true.
That's true. This is my actual computer from.
You're old enough to have owned an Apple II?
I am. I'm 21, and I got the Apple II. No, check it out. It still works.
Yeah?
Got the disk drive 2 running here, running the software. Sorry to hijack your story there. I
No,
just thought you might
right,
appreciate
right,
it.
right.
So you were obsessed with the Macintosh, though, were you
I
not?
was obsessed with the Macintosh. I was totally, just dazzled by it. And a few decades later, the first time I saw Google Plus, well, it's not a good experience because I was posting to only the people in my circles, which was only about 80 people, so I would never get that many comments. And then finally, one day, somebody pointed out to me, duh, guy, you're not posting to the general public, so no wonder you're not getting any action. Duh. So, it would be like, the first time you use a Macintosh, you had the mouse upside down. You're saying, oh, what the hell is this Macintosh? Why is it so good? The mouse doesn't work. Well, if you turn the mouse over, it makes a lot better experience, right?
You did parallel that you paralleled the belief in the Macintosh system in the same way that you paralleled the belief in what Google Plus can do.
For me, people might think this is an exaggeration, but when I saw Google Plus, I liked the white space. Compared to Facebook and Twitter, you can edit a post after you posted it. Well,
you make mistakes?
What a concept, every one. So I edit almost every post. I edit many of the comments. As I said, I like the white space, and being a wannabe photographer, I like that you can integrate photos into the post. Twitter, you have a link. Facebook, you kind of have a thumbnail. I mean, it's not quite the same. The album isn't as good on Facebook as it is in Google+. And what I noticed most powerfully was the quality and quantity of the comments coming in.
Got it.
And so I really loved it. And so now continuing the Macintosh analogy, in my mind, Macintosh, very few people used it. And most pundits said that Apple would die. And now fast forward to today, most people are using Facebook and Twitter, not Google+. And a lot of the pundits say it's a ghost town, it won't succeed. So it was deja vu. Here was, I thought, a better product, fewer people using it, and the experts saying it wouldn't succeed. So that's why I felt like I had this moral obligation to write this book about Google+, just like I wrote a book called The Macintosh Way. So that was the impetus. It's
beautiful. And a lot of the things that you said in there were chapters that I took away, like, I need to talk to him about that. One of which, for example, is why I love Google+. I feel like we just got that one. But how to master circles? Yeah. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I'm also on Google+. I agree with what he said about the sharing of the photo. It's really, really good. The photographic community there is very, very strong.
It's great, yeah.
But explain to the world, in that camera right there, or these fine folks in the audience, about circling. It's the equivalent of a like or a follow, right?
Yeah. So a circle is a group of people that you've organized in some contextual manner. So you could put all your friends in one circle, you could put your family in one circle, you could put your colleagues in one circle, you could put your photography friends in another circle, your hockey friends in another circle, because every post you make isn't applicable to every circle. So there are things you'd send to your family versus your colleagues versus your hockey friends versus your photography friends. And so this is a way of organizing your sort of outreach to the world. It is a way, in a sense, of making sure that you don't do something stupid to the wrong circle.
I've sent my mom some stuff that I wish I didn't. Mom, if you're watching, I'm
having
sorry.
Said that, I don't want you to think that circling is a foolproof way of privacy, because obviously anybody can take a screenshot and they can forward, and there's ways to control what the circle can do with a post by locking it. But I think that once you press the share button on anything,
it's out there.
It's gone. I mean, you just kiss it goodbye. So, my message is circles are good to increase the relevance of your post to a certain group of people, but I don't think you should think of it as a privacy mechanism, because privacy is an illusion.
Yeah. Once it's out there, it's out there.
It's out there. Yeah.
Well, I was at South by Southwest. So were you, and we didn't even cross
I love
paths.
South by. It's my favorite conference of the year.
It's a great one. But it was beautiful. Were you there during the rainstorms?
Oh,
my God,
yeah.
Sideways rain. Anyway.
It was like Seattle.
It was.
On a sunny day.
Well, we were there together, although we didn't cross paths. But I talked to some nice folks at Google, and they were really adamant about how they're working it into. It's not just going to be another silo. How that's really going to be a layer that lays over all of that stuff, and it gave me hope.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly integrated into search now. So when you search on Google, if I search for hockey, I would see NHL.com come up, the traditional Google search result, but I would also see what my friends have posted about hockey. So the use case scenario is not so much that one as, let's say that you didn't go to South by Southwest and you were curious what happened at South by Southwest. So if you type South by Southwest into Google right now and you're on Google+, you would see the normal Google search results, but you'd also see the people who you've circled, what they posted about South by Southwest. So arguably, you'd see what Wired and CNET and USA Today and the Washington Post and the New York Times wrote about South by Southwest.
Right.
But if you were in my circle, I would also see, well,
I'm
this
not in your
is
circle?
Yeah, I don't know. This you should be.
I am.
We can fix that now. Then I would see, well, this is Chase's pictures from South by Southwest, which would be a very different take than some Reuters or AP photographer.
Yeah.
So that increases the relevancy and personality of your searching, which I think is a great idea.
I love it. I love it. A couple other questions on that thing. So I like the photo aspect of it, and usually the depth of the comments on the photos within Google Plus are as if it's a specific network designed to share photography, because there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of photographers are putting a lot of pictures there. I find it is nice to get that nice big picture. When you were writing your book as a photographer, so talk to me about. There's a chapter in here, how to share photos. Right. What's your if you're going to put a bow on that for me, what would it be?
Well, first of all, that chapter was guest written by a photographer named David Powell. Because, one thing I've learned in my career is you should know what you don't know. So I asked him to do it because he's really a photographer. He has this website called Shoot Tokyo. And I think the number one thing you have to understand about photos on Google Plus is that basically every post should have a photo. Unless it's a video. Yeah. But every post has to have eye candy.
Isn't it weird? Like you put one on there that doesn't, it just gets a tenth of the attention.
Yeah, it really. So I spend a lot of time, if you're curating and you're linking to a story, Google Plus will already suck in a photo automatically, but I never use that one. I always try to take a shot from the story that I think embodies the story better. Sometimes I use Wikimedia. Like if it's a story about India, then I would go to Wikimedia and grab the Wikimedia image of India, maybe the map of India, something like that. I think that every post should have a picture. I mean, that should be a rule.
That's beautiful. I think that's a great rule. And so if you're just now tuning in with us, I'm Chase Jarvis. We're at Chase Jarvis Live here. Joining me with my good friend, Guy Kawasaki. And we're talking about how to make amazing, cool, kick-ass stuff in this new era of social media, how to enchant, which is something we'll shift gears to in just a second, and sort of win business and win friends. And it's that book is kind of like the win friends and influence people
Dale
book.
Carnegie's book?
Yeah, it's like a replacement for that
You know
book.
that book was published in something like 1933, and it sold 15...
You look a lot younger than that.
15 million copies.
Wow. Well, I think enchantment is the new version of that. Norton, whatever it's worth, I didn't see your sign there you're talking about. Got it. Sweet. So, if I was going to pick one more chapter to go deep on, because I have so many. Let's just tell the people what they want to know, because you're the social guru, right?
Yeah.
How to get more followers? Like, what's the key to? You have 1.5 million or something like that, close to 2
something
million?
like that. Yeah. Well, to be honest, a lot of people with hundreds of thousands of followers. They try to act like it's because they merit it and they're great engagers and all this kind of BS. I will be completely upfront. I would not have anywhere close to the number of followers that I have if it were not for the fact that Google made me a suggested user. So when people sign up to Google+, I'm one of the people, me and Brittany, that...
Nice one, dude.
Yeah, right?
Nice one.
Me, Brittany, and P. Diddy. So I'm one of the people that Google suggests you follow. And many people just take that and do it. So I realized that if it weren't for me being on that list, I would not have anywhere close.
But why were you on the list? You're on the list because you're a badass and because...
Well, I know how to suck up to Google. I mean, well, seriously, sucking up may be too harsh a term, but Google wants to make Google Plus successful. What makes Google Plus successful? People who post interesting stuff and respond to comments. So I post interesting stuff and I respond to comments, so I'm just a tool in Google Plus's toolbox. But it's...
That's going to be quoted on the internet, I
think. Vic Gandrolta is going to love that. So,
Vic, if you're watching,
I don't mind being a tool. So, that's why. It makes sense for Google to suggest me because I do post a lot, I engage a lot, and I don't promote that much. So it's not like I'm a spammer. And they, in a sense, they're marketing Google Plus because they want the broad spectrum of society to use Google Plus. So they put Brittany up there, right?
Sure.
And then they put photographers up there because they want to appeal to that niche. So it makes perfect sense.
Right.
But that's why. So that's one way to get a lot of followers is suck up well.
To Google. Vic,
now,
if you're
not
listening.
everybody can suck up well because you don't have the time or the whatever visibility.
Right.
What is that? So anyway, I hope that's not my phone. So
I think I might be a prime violation right there. Ooh,
yeah,
here we go.
It's Vic.
Yeah, it's Vic. Sorry, Vic.
So zooming back from that, I think the key to getting a lot of followers and all of SEO is to post good, I'll use a non-profane word, post good shiitake, which is Google is in the business of finding good stuff. And so rather than trying to trick Google into promoting you and trick Google into providing your blog higher up in the list of search results, you should just write good stuff so that Google can do its job. You do your job, write good stuff, post good stuff. Google will do its job of finding you. Life is simple.
Beautiful, beautiful segue. Seriously, so what I wanted to do is then take that out of just the book that you just written, and I would hold it up. It's an ebook, so I'll go like this because we'll talk about that in just a second. But that is, if I'm going to try and boil that down to a lesson for creatives especially, like I've had this mantra of shoot, edit, share. So if you're shooting, you need to be putting it out there. Shooting it, leaving it on your hard drive, that doesn't count, right? Because no one's going to see that stuff. Shooting it and pushing it out there, and ideally it's good shiitake, right? And the better the shiitake, the more traction you're going to get.
Chase, I've tried to enchant people with good stuff, and I've tried to enchant people with crap. It's a lot easier with good stuff. So, in a sense, the key to, lots of people have asked me, Guy, what's the key to evangelism? What's the key to marketing? The key to evangelism and marketing is to evangelize and market good stuff.
Yeah.
It's very easy to market and evangelize good stuff. It's very hard to evangelize and market crap. So don't create crap or don't affiliate with crap.
Yeah. That is, I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, I feel like I learned that as an early adopter of the social channels, and that's basically how I sort of built a reasonable following myself, was because I was out there trying to give a lot and expect nothing in return. Like that is, as a mantra in the social sphere, is I don't know, you can't really overstate it.
That's the key.
And if the stuff that you're putting out there, creative or not, is well respected, even if it's just you're curating links for someone else, if it's a cool link, I'm like, wow, that's person's, it was a little gift, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then also you end up getting a lot of feedback. Sometimes some of that feedback you don't want, but I couldn't subscribe to that any more heartily than what you just did right there. So there was about 200 quotes. I think everyone's head down in there. They're not even watching the program. They're all on their phone right now.
Yeah, why don't you do it on your phone?
Yeah, I'm Chase Jarvis. I'm here with Guy Kawasaki. We're going to start with some questions here in just a second. Hashtag CJLive on the old, go to the phones. So if you in the internet want to ask some questions, you guys here, we'll grab a mic so we can pass some of that around. In the meantime, I mentioned the contest about winning a trip for two for you and your friend to join me in New York City. That's going on right now. There's also a contest that Broncolor is hosting. We're going to give away a Sunbounce Mini, which is a reflector, great photo reflector that we use. It comes with a pouch. And you do the same thing, tweet the URL to this show, a cool quote, and they want us to shoot at Shoot LA, which is a really cool event they've got coming up on the 28th. If you're going to be in and around LA, take a peek at that thing. There'll be a world-class group of talent giving you portfolio reviews. Now to the phones, or actually instead of the phones, I will kick over to the Twitter sphere here in just a second on my little iPadius Maximus. Question from the audience. Who's got a hand up here? Shoot, yes sir.
Yes, my understanding is I've heard from several people that with Google Plus, if you post a photograph, they actually own it and have rights to it. Can you explain that in a short way? I know that's a complicated question.
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. I suppose if I were Chase Jarvis, I would care about who owned my photo, but I'm Guy Kawasaki, so I shoot a photo. You want it, God bless you, take it. You know, my greatest fantasy would be I'm driving down the freeway one day and I see my photo on a billboard, you know, for, I don't know, for Guess jeans or something, or Lucky jeans, because that's what I wear. And I would not be offended. I would not be trying to, you know, do copyright thing on you. I would just be so flattered. So, you know, take my photos. I don't care. God bless you.
Yeah. So the difference between a professional and an amateur, but an aspiring photographer, would be there are a lot of TNC. Like, I'm not a lawyer, first of all, so this can't be any sort of legal advice. I'll start off with that. But the social channels are in a bind because there are some very strict laws about what those social networks can do with your property. So the typical methodology for allowing them to allow their networks to share them is to scrape more rights than they think they need. If they get right up to the edge of that line, it's like, oh, we only think we need this, then they still find that they get in a lot of legal trouble. So without dissecting this, I mean, this has been debated ad infinitum on, you know, we could get Professor Larry Lessig here to really give us a full brief on it. I have taken the opinion, now I've taken people to court, many multi-year lawsuits, and won over my copyright, so I stand behind it. But I want to get all the benefits of sharing as well. So I'm not at all advocating to just chuck copyright into the corner and share away. But I have found that the benefits that I gain from sharing in an environment where the rules or those sites aren't written so that they can, I mean, when was the last time you saw a Facebook campaign with just random photos of, like your guys' photos on a billboard in New York? They just don't do that. So the goal is not to be able to use them in that capacity. And they've stated this, but there's a legal sort of caveat that allows them, that prohibits them from writing the terms in such a way that makes it easy to share. So long answer short is I have not had bad experiences sharing socially. I've had good experiences sharing socially. Anytime I've seen something I didn't want out there, I write a letter or have my attorney write a letter, and it's usually rectified rather quickly. So again, qualify, there's all kinds of asterisks all over that sucker, but that's what it is. Another question from the audience, and then we'll go to the old internet. Shoot.
Yeah, so I'm interested. You were...
Oh, Mike.
Hold tight.
I can shout really loud.
Yeah, we need the internet to hear you too. Because this is going to be a good question, I feel it.
So I'm interested in your background as somebody who's been on the cutting edge basically all of your life. How much are you learning from your children now about social media?
That's a good question.
You know,
when you're 39 like he is.
Yeah, right. My children are primarily on Facebook. I tried to get them on Google+, and it didn't work because they didn't have any of their classmates on Google+, which is this common, you know, I went to Google+ and nobody's there. And the way I position Google+ versus Twitter versus Facebook is that Twitter is for news, right? So if you want to find out there was an earthquake in Chile, you know, 5 seconds after it happened, because you can't wait 60 seconds for CNN to tell you, you know, go to Twitter. Facebook is for friends and family, pre-existing relationships, friends, family. You know, you want news about when they had a baby, when they got into school, when they, you know, had sex, whatever it is. That's for Facebook. But I think Google Plus is for passions. So I love photography. The friends and family that I have on Facebook, they're not into photography. So I have an entire new set of friends on Google+, and what we have in common is a passion for photography. So Google+ is for passions, and Facebook is for people, and Twitter is for news. That's how I have the breakdown in my mind. So my kids, who are 16, 18, 10, and 6, you know, it's not clear to me I want them meeting new people with sharing passions, if you know what I mean. So even my 18-year-old is not active on Google+. But you know, one day when he does become this person who has these interests, I think he would naturally gravitate towards Google+, when it's not about, you know, look who's dating who, or look who, you know, whatever. I don't know. I don't even know what he posts on Facebook, to tell you the truth.
You're not his friend.
No. I never asked him, because I would not deal well with rejection.
Yeah, unfriend. I'm unfriending my dad. Go ahead, at the back. Yes, sir.
So Chase, I really dig this conversations that you've been having. Really good conversations, really good people you bring in.
Thank you
and
so much.
Guy, it's a pleasure meeting you. And I noticed that you had something in your pocket that you were writing on. I'm an old Newton user, and so I wonder what device that you had. You can
You're a Samsung guy, right?
Oh man, can I?
There's a question.
Android phone. Everybody
Okay.
thought I'd get an iPhone, but the iPhone at the time wouldn't broadcast.
Let me actually raise a point here, because I found out something about you, and this is really the context of this conversation. You guys can talk about your device whenever you want to, but what?
Yeah.
You're not on iOS
No,
anymore.
I'm not on iOS. Can you believe that?
So the internet actually just booed. I heard the whole internet boo.
Yeah.
It's so strange. No, but let's talk about that for a second, because you were the original evangelist. You basically created the
Mac
idea.
evangelist, not iOS though.
Yeah, but you were the original tech evangelist.
That was the second one, but yeah.
Okay.
That's,
So humble, so humble.
I was the second one. Oh, first there was Jesus, then there was Mike Boych, and then there was me. So it was, I was really the third one. But
Okay, so what is it about? What is it about Android? If we're going to go nerdy techie here, what
okay,
is it about Android?
so a few years ago, when Apple was supposed to die, they ran a campaign called Think Different, right? And so what it was trying to tell people is that rather than just going down this path where everybody's using Windows, you should think different, and you should look outside the box. And so I embraced the concept of thinking different. And so Motorola and Samsung have sent me Android devices, and I really like them. So I'm willing to think different. Today, thinking different means you don't use Apple, because everybody's using Apple. What irony, that's the mark of Apple's great success, that now, you know, thinking different means not using Apple. And so there are things about the Android that I really love. For example, you can have multiple apps running with multiple windows. You can't do that. I also like, with Android, I use a Samsung Galaxy Tab 7.7 inch, and it is, you know, 2/3 the size of that. It's a much more convenient size. I do a lot of reading in bed. And you know, when you read with that in bed and you fall asleep, you can get hurt. I mean, it will smash your face. My Tab doesn't do that. It just sort of floats down.
So is it the open architecture of the Android world?
I think that's a bit, you know, like there's all these geeks who say, yeah, I like open architecture. Like, for what? I mean, basically, I use email, calendar, Dropbox, Evernote, TripIt, and Kindle. That's it. That's all I really care. Or speed test. I love to look at what the speeds are. So speed test. There's like 7 apps that I use. And I'll give you an example. I have a Motorola Droid Razr Max phone. And it has twice the battery life of an iPhone. That's one key feature. Second key feature is they have this thing called Smart Actions, which I discovered the other day. And so I have an action that says, if someone calls the phone, look if Guy has an appointment. If Guy has an appointment, send the caller a text message that says, I'm busy, I'll call you back, okay? Unless it's my wife, then the phone rings, okay?
Some people might have that back.
Yeah, right. No, that's different. So you
Not
can't
me.
do that on
Not
an
me.
iPhone.
I would never. I
You
always
cannot
pick
do
up
that.
the phone
Yeah,
when my
right.
wife calls.
You can't do that on an iPhone. So there's some elements of Android that's more programmable.
Got it.
You know, that's it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So to answer your
Good
question,
question.
what you saw me using was a Samsung Galaxy Note. And if you looked at my Google Plus feed right now, you'll see pictures where I scribbled, you know, behind the scenes at Chase Jarvis, and I wrote on the thing, and then I shared it with Google Plus. And I love the ability to take a picture, scribble on it, post it to Google Plus. Because in the old days, you know, what I would do is I would take a picture, I would take the SD card out of my camera, I would stick it in there, I would put it into Lightroom, I would crop it and do all this kind of crap, and then I would, you know, I would get Sketch, or I would get something else, and then I would annotate it and then post it.
This is getting long.
Yeah, right. It's a long process. So that's why I use a note for what I just did.
All right, I like that. I like the idea that we've sort of shifted accidentally to technology with the technology evangelist here. So to that end,
yes.
I would like to find out a little bit more about, so we've got real actual books here, printed books, which are beautiful, and these are going out to the folks that have signed, or that won the earlier contest. We've got to get you to sign those.
We should give one to the audience.
You think so? All right, we will at the end of the show. We'll do that.
Not everyone.
Yeah. We only have a couple, so.
I'm going to Amazon after this. We can go in the warehouse and get anything you want.
I love it. But you did, now, you know, this is, I, as an artist, I love artifacts. I love touching art and feeling things.
You need to get over that feeling.
Yeah.
But okay.
But let's talk a little bit about
E-books.
Your book is an ebook.
Yes.
What the Plus is an ebook. So talk to me about that process for a second. Because, and I want to contextualize this just for a second, because there are a lot of opportunities coming up for, you know, it's the first time in the history of the world that we artists and the folks at home on the internet don't require permission from anyone else to publish.
No kidding.
And that doesn't mean, you know, that we can publish through Bird or sorry, Blurb or Akuza or online at the internet just by hitting send. All that is very, very exciting. So what have you done with your ebook? Why did you do it?
Okay. Now this is going to be another long answer.
Okay.
You can take a break.
No, that's right. I think the internet wants to know, inquiring minds, as they say.
All right, so I've written 11 books, and my 11th is What the Plus, and it's ebook only, and it's $2.99.
Which is?
Well, I tried to make it $2.74 because the price of a Starbucks latte is $2.75. And I wanted to be able to say, this is less than a Starbucks latte. But I submitted it to iBooks, and they tell me it has to end in 99. Like, you know, what? Steve Jobs, you know, said it had to end in 99. What was the rule there? Okay, so you can't make it $2.74. God forbid, you know, it would break down Apple. So, okay, so now it's $2.99. So now I have to tell people it's less than a Starbucks grande latte. Not the tall, the grande. Okay, so anyway, so it's still true. So why did I do this? I did this because with Enchantment, I had a case where Salesforce.com wanted 500 copies of Enchantment as an ebook to give to their customers. And it was not possible for my publisher to fulfill that order because they have some kind of contractual relationship with some agency relationship with iBooks and Kindle, so they can't do it. They can't provide it directly. And so the solution was tell Salesforce.com to get a Visa card and buy your book one at a time. And I said, you can't be serious. But that was the answer. So that was the day I said, my next book is ebook. So now I can do all kinds of crazy things. So there's several parameters of this. So from the time that I submitted the manuscript in Word to the copy editor till it was available on Kindle and iBooks was roughly 10 days. The Word document took about 3 days to copy edit. I took about 1 day to approve the copy edits. And then 5 or 6 days later, boom, I'm in business. Hella freaking Yuya. I mean, that's, you know, basically 51 weeks faster than the old business. In terms of the flexibility I have, I've licensed the ebook to Samsung, you know, for much less than $2.99. That's not conceivable. If you call up a New York publisher and said, Samsung wants to sponsor a book, they want to pay, you know, less, they could not compute that. So it gives me much greater flexibility. I have given away about 7,000 copies online. I just sit here.
So I wasn't special?
No. Well, you're in my, no, but you're the top 7,000 of 1.5 million.
Hey, all right.
Right.
Dun, dun.
So I have covered the earth with free PDFs, and what I've noticed is the more I give the book away, the more I sell. What a concept. You know, would any New York publisher like to try that experiment? I don't think so. And then push comes to shove, on $3, I get to keep $2. So on enchantment, I get 50% of the cover price. So I get 15% of $13, right? Which is roughly, you know, $2 or $3. It's roughly the same amount. So on a suggested retail $26 book, I make $2 or $3. On a $3 book, I make $2 or $3. Which is easier to sell? Wow, let me think about that. So now, I don't want you to think that all of life is great as an ebook self-publisher. There is an issue here. The issue is, with that book, I had this great publicity team. They sent it to reviewers. They did all kinds of stuff. They, you know, got me on shows, all this kind of stuff. They got this book into bookstores, Barnes & Noble, all that. So they did that. If you are a self-publisher, you have to make the calculation. You are the entrepreneur. You are the entrepreneur, you're the marketing vice president, and you're the sales vice president. There is nobody else. It's you. So if you are an author who's willing to market your own work, self-publishing works. But if you're the kind of author, if you have this impression that writing is, you're sitting on this windswept beach and you have your Mont Blanc fountain pen and you have this parchment and the words flow from your brain, through your arm, through the Mont Blanc, through the gold nib onto the paper, and then you send this thing and your editor in New York reads your fountain pen draft and all they can say is, oh my God, this is the greatest literature work in the history of man. Let me publish it immediately and get you on Oprah. If you believe that's how writing is, you're in for a big disappointment. And so you have to be the entrepreneur. That's the only caveat with self-publishing.
Which is a big one. And I think, again, there's a really direct, so that's a creative industry, being an author. There's a very, very direct correlation between being a photographer and selling your own work. Like, you have to have that mentality. And I would ask everyone in the audience and the folks at home, if you don't have that audience, what are you doing about it? If you don't have that mentality, what are you doing about it? Because that is the key to be able to be a professional. To take a lot of pictures does not equal a professional. To take a lot of pictures and license or sell or vend or through galleries or online or whatever, purvey your craft. And if you can't do that, you're in trouble. It's going to be very hard to be a professional because you're not going to make any money. So I like the connection that you've just sort of built for us. Now, I want to go back up a little bit because as I sort of open the show with the contest that's running right now where folks can take a cool quote, which is, there's absolutely so many of these things. It's hilarious what you've actually said. There's a very, very good record of it.
It's a scary thought.
But the fact that those folks are doing that, plus at HP Print, and then the URL to this live video page right here, is around that project, that film project that I'm involved with. Working title, 7 Days Without Print. Don't know if that's going to be the thing or not. Is we are interested in understanding, like I too, when I think, oh, where do I want the newspaper? Absolutely right here. My magazine's right here. Where do I want my book? My book of yours is here. You know, that's the way I consume that sort of media. But what is a life like without print? And I know there's an artisan side to you as well. When I think of, I mean, just think here, like I got a Polaroid camera here, and when you take a picture with a Polaroid camera, it comes out the front, and you hand someone that. What happens versus if I took a picture? Actually, let's just do it and figure out what's going on here. Maybe I'll do it of Guy.
Do the audience.
Yeah. Maybe both of you. Okay. So there's something that's digital. You guys, you know, you can't see that. Hi, Guy. How's it going? That was you were getting swabbed the whole time I was pointing the camera over here. He was like. And then we'll do one of these. Okay. So.
And then there's Instagram.
Yeah. So I can tell you that there's something about, like, you guys, like, you want to see this, but you think you might see it later online. But right now I'm going like this, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's what's over there, you know. Now, to me, that's a really, really interesting idea. So I've got, you know, I'm a huge fan of that. If you look behind us, there are, you know, huge 40 by 50 prints. This is a screen print. This is an Obey shirt. If you zip the
what?
Obey, it's a brand by fellow named Shepard Fairey. So that's printed. So print is actually everywhere, and I think when people think about print, they think about it here. How do you think about all this stuff that I'm talking about?
I know HP is a sponsor, so I'll just tell you that every bit in my house is printed off an HP printer for the last, I don't know, 27 years or so.
Yeah.
So yeah. But having said that, I'm kind of an electronic person.
Yeah.
What I do print often ends up scanned and in Evernote. So my life is in Evernote right now.
Yeah, actually, it's a huge, like, I'm a huge Evernote fan, yeah. If you don't know it, Evernote.com, it's an amazing
Yeah, it
app.
really
My
is.
digital, that's actually what I'm using to guide myself through the show right now.
Evernote?
Evernote.
Oh, your notes are there?
Yeah.
Ah. But I tell you, you know, what was the holiday we just came upon? It was Valentine's Day. I bought my wife the Annie Leibovitz book, right?
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah, it is a beautiful book. I don't know if it would have had the same effect of giving her a Kindle promo code. You know what I'm saying? It's just not the same.
Right.
So I think there is a place for print, absolutely.
That's yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm you know, you have your foot in each of the puddles, so to speak, and so do I as an artist, and it's an interesting concept when I print something out. And you know, we had the Seattle 100 gallery show in here, and there's another about 4,000 square foot on the other side of this wall, and it was just hung with 44 by 55 inch prints everywhere. And when you walk into that sort of environment, it's a really, really heavy environment.
Yeah.
So again, if you're just tuning in, what we're talking about is the relevance of print in our culture, and a project that I'm working on in collaboration with some folks.
I also think, you know, as long as every airline enforces this ridiculous rule that you can't have your iPhone, iPad, MacBook, Android, whatever on, you know, as they're taking off and as they're landing, there will be a place for print.
I know, absolutely. And I think that not in the same way that printed photographs haven't gone away, in the same way that acrylics or that oil paints didn't go away when acrylics came on. What we may find is this just homeostasis of where the things that are the best in that particular medium preserved in that medium, and the things that are really efficient, like deployment of media, for example, might be in a different one. So again, if you're just tuning in and any of that sort of print conversation excites you, pull a cool quote out of our conversation and the link to this here page and at HP Print to win a chance to travel to New York with yours truly, dinner and a movie. But you and two friends, so I'll have to have a really big arm. And also we got the broncolor contest still going on. Correction, what is it? There you go. The Twitter handle is at Shoot Los Angeles, not Shoot LA. So same thing, that'll win you a California Sun Bounce. Shifting gears, you worked under Steve Jobs.
Yes.
Fascinating man. I bumped into him once, like literally physically at one Infinite Loop. And
did he tell you your photographs are crap?
No, actually, just the opposite. Actually,
okay, good.
You're
one of the few.
No, I had a very successful iPhone app called Best Camera not too long ago that he and the Apple management liked, and it was on every device in every Apple store. It was in their television commercials and all that. So it was different. But what was it like to work for him? Because I didn't work for him. So.
Well, it was, you know, a great experience. Not necessarily a fun experience, but it was a great experience. You know, to a large extent, I am where I am today because of Steve Jobs. And he taught me a great appreciation for design, a great appreciation for the ability for motivated people to change the world. I wouldn't say he's a warm and fuzzy kind of guy, tough guy to work for, but that was his thing.
In the end, would you take in warm fuzzy and learn less, or would you rather have the Steve Jobs that you
I
learned
would
from?
rather, you know how sometimes when you, take an example of my English teacher, when you're in the moment, you think, wow, God, this is like, he's the meanest guy, it's so hard to do, blah, 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 you know, such a perfectionist. But years later, you say, wow, that's the one that mattered. It's not the pushover teacher, it's the tough teacher. Same thing, I think, with coaches. Mm-hmm. The coach that lets you get away with murder, at the time, you think, oh, this is a great coach, right? You know? But years later, you look back and say, the coach that was the real disciplinarian, that's the one that taught you stuff. And so that's the way I would approach Steve Jobs.
Would you say the same would be true for like the creative spirit, the like when you're head down working hard, and you say you're at an ad agency and you're a production artist, and you've got a whip cracker for a boss, generally is there some sort of the harder you work mentality, the harder you work under someone who's pressuring you, the better?
I think so. But let's face it, there are instances in life where you are working for a 24-karat asshole and you're not learning anything, right? So this is not to say that every asshole is a visionary,
right,
and every asshole is going to be looked upon later as a great influence.
I was going to do the work to qualify it, but I'm glad you're doing it for us. That's good.
Orifice. So, you know, there are orifices who are just orifices.
Yes. Well said. That is going to get retweeted all over the internet. It's probably not going to win one of the contests that's going on right now. But we're going to go to the phones, hashtag CJLive here in just a second. In the meantime, I'm going to take one from the
phones?
crowd.
Phones? Like,
hello?
Yeah.
Internet, Twitter.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, to the left, Norton. There you go.
Hi, thanks for coming, Guy. It's great to hear your
Thank
thoughts. Switching to your role as an investor, what are you excited about right now, and what do you look for in companies that pitch you for investment?
First of all, in a rare moment of Guy Kawasaki humility, let me tell you that I'm not proven as an investor. I mean, I haven't invested in an Apple or Google or Cisco or Yahoo or anything. I think it's because I tend to make investments in stuff that I love to use, and maybe I'm just a market of one. But I guess I truly do love social media. I advise a few companies that I'm really excited about. I advise Evernote, for example. I could just list all my conflicts of interest. Evernote, Stumble Upon. I love Stumble Upon.
Yeah, you can list them. Don't list them as conflicts of interest unless you feel like you need to. List them if you love them. That's what we care about.
I only advise stuff I love. There's another company called Buffer. It does something called Buffer app, and what Buffer does is it allows you to, you know, sometimes like if you get inspired at 3 a.m. Pacific time because you happen to be at 6 a.m. in New York, and you know it's not optimal for you to tweet at 3 a.m. Pacific.
I noticed you tweeted during the show. I was going to ask you how you did that.
Well, that's a whole nother story. So
remote control.
So Buffer allows you to create a buffer of tweets that will go out during the times you specify. So I could say I only want to tweet from 8 a.m. Pacific to 8 p.m. Pacific. So I can write the tweet, I can send it to Buffer, and then when it turns to 8 a.m., that's when they'll start shooting them out. I think that's very useful. God, I would pay a lot of money to be able to do that on Google+. Google+, shall I say, the APIs are somewhat lacking right now. So you can't schedule a share on Google+. And that's a real problem for me because I've noticed that if I post anytime after, let's say, 10 p.m. Pacific, Southeast Asia is awake. And if you post when Southeast Asia is awake, you're getting a lot of crap. And so, not to be racist, because every time I say this, you know, all the people in Southeast Asia, they all go crazy. But, you know, they're the ones who are posting crap. What can I say? So, it's that kind of thing. I just love social media. And for creative, getting back to the topic of self-publishing and being a creative, you know, in the old days, you had to pay for marketing, you had to pay for advertising. Now, between blogging and Google+ and Twitter and Facebook, you can do a lot of marketing for free. So the key is to get a lot of followers. Now, when I say that, lots of social media experts go crazy because they're saying, you know, Guy, it's not a quantity game, it's a quality game. You know, there's only two kinds of people on social media. Those who want more followers and those who are lying, okay? So, everybody wants more followers because when you have more followers, you can put that on Twitter too. Yep. Whenever you get more followers, things get more interesting. And so you want more followers. You do whatever it takes to get more followers.
It didn't take very long. It's already on
Twitter.
Yeah,
right. Can I give you one more model?
Yeah, man.
So one more mental model for you is NPR. I love NPR. Wait, don't tell me is my favorite one. Okay, I love NPR. NPR puts out great content 365 days a year. In my mind, they have earned the right to run those stupid telethons. I hate those telethons. You know, I don't want this cranking Eton radio that in case of nuclear attack, I can hear the report. If in case of nuclear attack, you know, kiss my butt, goodbye. So what do I care? So, but I tolerate NPR's telethons because they put out such great content. So you should keep that in your mind. Always put out great content, links, photos, whatever it is, so you are earning the right to then promote your show, promote your photograph, promote your book, promote your movie. You're earning the right, just like NPR earns the right to run a telethon.
That's a beautiful, beautiful analogy. Can we clap for that one? I think that's pretty, that's worse. And then you worked NPR in there, you know?
Yeah. You should give me your list of sponsors. I'll work them all in. So we got HP. Oh, so yesterday I get this email. I get this email from my friend. Listen to this. I get this email from my friend, and he sends me a screenshot of B&H with me in the B&H ad.
Wow.
Isn't B&H a sponsor?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They help us.
Sir,
They
so we
provide a lot
got
of the
another
equipment here.
sponsor. So I've arrived. I'm in a B&H photo ad. I mean, I'm almost a professional photographer.
Yeah, you'll make hundreds, I promise you.
And now I'm gonna be, I'm gonna start suing people when you use my photo without my permission.
So speaking of photography and technology, let's just go there. So you are constantly, I get emails from a guy at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Bing, like,
What's with the Fuji?
yeah. Which Nikon are you going to buy? The D4 or the D800? Like, I respond back. It's usually, do you have this yet? Because I am in the very luxurious position of getting everything before it comes out usually. And so he always wants me to send it to him.
What are friends? I know you're not using it. What do you do with it?
No. So
I'll swap you a Samsung Tab for a D800.
no thanks. Canon or Nikon? Canon or Nikon?
Nikon.
Okay. And when you say, so you're a photographer, which is one of the reasons that I think that may have been how we connected originally.
Photography.
How into it would you say you are? Like, what's the depth at which Guy
Well,
Kawasaki goes?
I mean, if you saw
hockey
my
photos, is
hockey's too hard to shoot. It is. It's really hard.
You know what? I just need you to invite me down to your hockey rink and we'll slay it together. I'll
Okay,
let you use the
I don't-
300, 2.8, and just be.
I don't know how you shoot hockey, but I carry a Nikon D7000 with me, and I only use one lens because I read somewhere that real men use prime lenses, right? So I want to be a real man. So I only carry with me a 14mm lens, which you recommended, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why I carry such a wide angle lens, although it is not a fisheye lens, is because most of the time I'm shooting people. It's me with other people.
These pictures, we get to do a lot of these
Yeah,
pictures.
we do a lot of these kind of pictures. So I shoot very close, and even a 50mm, you'd have to back up too far to get 4 or 5 people in the shot.
These arms are not. That's not 50mm long. You need to be like this long.
Yeah. So I carry a D7000 with a 14mm lens, and I love photography. In Silicon Valley, everybody's trying to be something they're not. So I'm trying to be a photographer. So.
Well said, well said. Back to the audience for another question, and then I'll go to the phones here.
I just had a question about how do you balance everything?
Tell us who you are first. So we can-
I'm Kenneth Shook.
Right on. And what was the question?
photographer.
How I
And
balance everything?
yeah, how do you balance everything? I was kind of stuck back to earlier in the conversation around social media and stuff like that.
It's not clear to me that I do balance everything. I have 4 children, and I will tell you, I travel a lot. I travel too much. My ultimate goal in life is to never get on an airplane again. And so, I give you an example, extreme example. So South by Southwest, I fly to San Antonio. The next morning, I moderate a panel. I drive to Austin. I moderate a panel, South by Southwest. I speak the next day at Dad's 2.0 outside of Austin. 2 days later, I fly to Orlando. I make a speech. I fly back to San Francisco, make a speech at Stanford. I fly back to Las Vegas, make a speech in Las Vegas, fly back to San Francisco, watch my kids in a lacrosse game. That night, I fly back to LA to speak for the International Sports Club, Association, and then I fly back. So that's kind of my life. That's not so balanced. That is an extreme example. I will tell you though that when I am at home, I don't go to an office. It's not like I work 60 hours a week when I'm home and then I travel. When I'm home, I take my kids to school, I pick them up from school, I play hockey at lunch every day that I'm at home, and I don't have this other existence where I'm a wage slave working 60 hours at a desk and I travel. So when I'm at home, I'm at home. And that's just, you know, the way it is. In a perfect world, I would never get on an airplane. That would be my idea. Right underneath perfect would be a private jet. I don't have a private jet. And right underneath that is, you know, Virgin America 2A.
That's right.
And underneath that is Southwest Airlines business class, so I can be A01, you know, and pick the seat that I want.
Awesome. I'm going to shift gears for a second. That was a great question. I think I was going to go to the phones, but it was just such a flood of, it was all comments, no questions, which I think is strange. And they're all quoting, I think everyone wants to go to New York with me or win his book or win a portfolio
What if the winner's
review.
from like Bulgaria or something?
Yeah.
So be it?
Yeah, so be it. That's why, you know, that's the way we roll. It's a global.
When is this thing?
It's to be announced.
Oh, it's like software?
Yeah, it's like software.
It's like it's like Vic Gondrota of Google Plus saying, yeah, someday there will be an API. Yeah, all right, whatever, Vic.
Okay. So I'm still looking at questions. If you guys want to send some in right now, it's just incredible. Just a lot of love. They're coming in about 3 or 4 per second. So every time I swipe, I get another 10.
Tell them to buy the book.
Which is, yeah, I think that's fair to say. You should look into that camera right there because that's the one that's
Buy
hot.
the book. Buy the book so I don't have to get on an airplane.
But I want to shift gears to a different book. Speaking of books,
Yeah.
Enchantment, because I think the creative community has a lot to learn about being enchanting, and I took that book to heart. I dog-eared so many. I do like a physical book until I realized that I can carry around 150 on this thing right here, but mine is dog-eared and tattered and in the best way because I feel like I took a lot out of that. I feel like it was written specifically to address the world that I live in and the world that we as creatives live in, because we have to be focused on ourselves and listen to our bodies enough to make something that's meaningful to us, and that's really what translates into making something meaningful into the world. And then we have to pimp it. You know, we have to put, you know, rinse, wash, repeat. You gotta shoot, edit, share, you know, create, share, sustain. All these things, these little mantras that I've had for myself that I've been putting out in the world for a long time are so applicable to enchantment. So sort of boil down enchantment for us in sort of an umbrella, if you will. Because it's a very, very intriguing concept.
Okay, so enchantment obviously is that book, and I view it as a process of sort of, you know, earning the right to influence and persuade people. And the
Helping you out here, bro.
Yeah. The 3 pillars of enchantment are likability, trustworthiness, and quality. And so I'll give it to you in a nutshell. For likability, the example I use is Richard Branson. So I was making a speech in Moscow, and he came back into the speaker's room, and he asked me if I flew on Virgin. And I said I didn't fly on Virgin because I'm a United Airlines Global Service level customer, which is the highest level. And when I told him that, he got on his knees and he started polishing my shoes with his jacket. So,
literally.
Yeah, literally. I have a picture of this.
This is a well-known story.
So I, you know, that's likability. You know, Sir Richard Branson polishing your shoes. That's the day I started flying Virgin America. So, as far as trustworthiness, I cite 2 great examples of trustworthiness. One is 2 blocks from here, Amazon. You know, you can return a Kindle ebook for up to a week, full credit. And many people could read a Kindle ebook in a week. But people don't do that, and Amazon trusts you not to do that, so you trust Amazon and you buy books. So that's another example. And then Zappos, of course, is this case where millions of women buy shoes without seeing the shoe or trying it on. That's kind of remarkable. I mean, who would think that a woman would buy a shoe without trying it on? Not me. So, and then quality, of course, is Apple. You know, the MacBook, the iPhone, iPod, iPad. So you want the quality of Apple, you want the likability of Richard Branson, and you want the trustworthiness of Amazon or of Zappos. And if you do those 3 things, you don't need to read the book. You could just...
But buy the book, by the way, folks, ladies and gentlemen, buy the book.
No planes.
So let's translate that to the large cross-section of our audience, which is creatives, designers, photographers, filmmakers. Would you say, is it a fair statement, buddy, to say that, go back to the sort of making quality content, and then, because it is a customer service business, right?
Yes.
like I have art directors and creative directors looking over my shoulders, and they're saying, they're making sure that the work that I'm doing is above and beyond their expectations, because that's one of the reasons they don't hire a dude with a finger and an eyeball. They hire someone, hopefully, that has vision. So can you extrapolate some of enchantment and map it to to the creative world for us?
You know, if you want to be an enchanting creative, I think it starts with quality, because if you have quality, it's easy to make you likable and trustworthy. But if you produce crap, no matter how likable and trustworthy you are, crap is crap. And so you want great stuff. And I can't help you with that. Chase can help you with that, how to have high quality stuff. That's Chase. But assuming you have that, then life is too short to deal with orifices. And so you could make the case, if you are really great, you can get away with stuff. You know, I'm a speaker, and so event managers tell me about some of the riders that speakers have on their contracts, like, you know, they need certain sky blue M&Ms, and they need certain purple towels, and they need a hairdresser, and they, their room has to face southwest because of some feng shui stuff, whatever, right? And the reason why people do that is because they can get away with it. It's not because, does it make any difference what color your M&Ms are? I mean, you need what, water that Tibetan monks got for you from the mountain? I mean, that's the water is not even filtered. It starts with great quality, and then, but there are a lot of very talented people. But the universe of very talented people who are likable and trustworthy is getting pretty small. I mean,
it is. And when you think about, apply that to your daily life, when let's say you're a photographer, and maybe you shoot film. We've talked about print and the tactility. You're retro. And are you cool to the people that are running the film counter? Are you cool to your first assistant? Do you have a good relationship with the client where you can feel like you feel like you can say the things that need to be said, even the hard ones? Have you worked at the relationship level to be able to tell the art director that I'm not excited about this, I want to go deeper, I want to work harder? Like those kinds of things, they underscore, if you will, trustworthiness. And if the trustworthiness has got an end goal of making the best possible product, you're starting to align your interests with those of the client. And the same thing could be said for your personal work, right? Are you making stuff that you're listening to the marketplace and trying to fit in there? Are you making stuff that makes you feel good? Because this is the best art. You have a perspective that no one else in the world, there literally is nobody else in the world like you. And if you're listening to number one, the art that you put out there has a much greater chance of succeeding because it's going to be unique. And this is going to be a beautiful segue to don't be better, be different. Which, fast forward to a post that you wrote on your blog called The 10 Things I Learned from Steve Jobs, which I then reworked, hijacked, gave you full credit for.
I saw.
And then published, and I think it's been liked like 10,000 times on Facebook and retweeted
more
about
than mine.
Probably. That's the difference between us.
All right.
No, that little list was so meaningful, and you talked earlier, just to revisit that, about struggling to really enjoy Steve as a boss, but what you got out of
Nobody enjoyed Steve as a boss.
There you go. You know, we enjoy the products.
Yeah.
But you remember that list of 10 things?
I do. I mean, if you're going to ask me to rattle all 10
I don't need 10, but just talk to me a little bit about it.
Well, one thing that Steve, I'll give you as much of the 10 as my 57-year-old senile mind can remember. I tell you, as an author, it's very interesting. I wrote that book more than 2 years ago. Some people come up and say, on page 67, you had this example of, and I go like, what the hell was that example? I have no idea anymore.
Same thing with pictures. Like, do you remember that picture with the guy and the mustache? And I'm like, yes, I love that picture. So
Steve Jobs. So one thing I learned from him is that experts are pretty much clueless. I mean, experts tell you that Macintosh will die, and experts tell you that Google Plus is a ghost town. I can't give you two great pieces of evidence that experts are clueless.
There's 100 million people on Google Plus, right?
Well, I don't know how they count that, but yeah, that's what they say.
But but the average use time is 3 minutes a month.
Well, that's somebody else saying that. I don't know how they counted that either.
Right.
But
It's crazy data. But
Yeah.
Okay, but I love the
meaningless.
analogy. So
Okay.
like the experts are crazy.
Experts are clueless, not crazy.
Clueless.
Experts are clueless. So that's one thing I learned. I learned that design matters. I learned that people respond to big goals. You know, Tom Peters called it big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs. You know, the goal for the Macintosh division was to take on IBM. It wasn't just to ship a personal computer. It's a big difference. I learned that A players hire A+ players, that you hire people better than yourself. So if you're the engineering guru, you should hire a salesperson who can sell better than you. Because if you're the engineering guru and you hire someone who cannot sell as good as you, you're really pathetic. I mean, you're going to go down the tubes.
You're not going to sell much.
Yeah, no,
Have you
not
ever
at
seen
all.
an engineer trying to sell
So,
something?
you know, it's those kinds of things that...
I love it. Some of the ones that I like, that this is my sort of hijacking of it, but that design matters.
Yeah.
You know, you said, I said aesthetic sensibilities actually matter. And to be able to look at something and to have educated yourself to a degree that you know, like what a high quality product is from a lesser quality product. And in art, it's very subjective, but through education, people do tend to agree on art quality. That's one thing that is not very often talked about because it's not cool to talk about it. But you put 10 pictures in a room, experts will gravitate towards the ones that they think are better. Yeah, and the same thing applies with the design of a product, like, you know, a phone or a printer, for an example, or this little point and shoot here. So I like that one a lot. Simple is good. Is that one of the ones, or did I make that up?
I think
on
you
my
made
own?
that up.
I like that one. One that is, I also sort of hijacked, and it's real people, real software
Real
those
CEOs ship. Yes.
So I translated that into real artists create. And it's really hard to make stuff when you're not engaged, when you're not part of the creative process on a daily basis. That's why I, you know, was ranting that little phrase, the best camera is the one that's with you, because you are able to create something at all the time, you know, all the time. And then it's not just creating it, it's sharing it. That's the shipping part, right?
Right.
Because what if you made a bunch of Macs and just left them in the warehouse? No big
That's
deal.
Xerox PARC.
Yeah,
That's what they did.
There you go. So, is there anything else that you took away from Steve other than I mean, I'm sure there's a million things, but what, like, Steve was such an icon and you got to be close with him in a way that
I think
a lot of us
maybe
haven't.
the most important lesson is that great innovation occurs when you jump curves, not when you stay on the same curve and make something slightly better, right? So you could make a slightly better SLR. You could make a slightly better IBM PC. You could make a slightly better daisy wheel printer. But the real innovation occurs when you go from daisy wheel printer to laser printer, when you go from SLR to mirrorless, or when you go from, you know, there used to be an ice harvesting business where they, in the winter, Bubba and Junior would cut blocks of ice in the 1900s. The next curve was ice factory. Now you froze water, any city, any time of year. Big improvement. You know, you could live in Hawaii and have an ice factory. And then the next curve was, of course, the refrigerator curve. Now you have your personal ice factory. No more Iceman has to come to your house. Those are three curves, ice 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And you know, whether you like Apple or not, you have to say that, wow, you know, Apple went from personal computer to MP3 device to phone to tablet. Not many companies can say that. Listen, I don't work for Apple anymore. I mean, I stand in line at the, you know, University Apple store, University Avenue Apple store, or the Stanford Shopping Centers. I pay full retail just like any other schmo. So it's not because, you know, I'm an Apple employee that I'm saying this, but they have jumped the curve many times, more times than any other company.
So how can you do that creatively? What can you do for your work? How can you push that to the next level? That to me is really innovating. That when I stay awake at night, it's because of things like that. It's like, how can we get everybody in the world to think, oh, where's my little phone? I had a phone around here somewhere. How can we
I have a note if you want.
How can we get everybody in the world to think about this not as a phone, but as a camera? You know, that was a big mission for me a long time ago. It's since been, you know, relatively adopted. I wasn't the only goal, but that's a jump the curve thing, because there are 5.5 billion active accounts to be able to take a picture and share. And as soon as we did that, we moved from maybe 50 million photographers to arguably 5 billion. So I like the idea of jumping the curve. Go back to enchantment for a second, because I don't feel like I got deep enough on that.
Yeah.
For me, that was a really, really powerful book. So you talked about being enchanting, you talked about winning customers, and we applied it to some creative stuff. But one of the things I like about the book, I'll confess, is it's full of lists.
Yeah.
Like creatives are like, oh no, he said just do it. What does that mean? Or, you know, I mean, and this is in enchantment, you have step A, step B, step C.
All my books are like that.
Why is that?
Because
I love it, but why?
Because I think that makes whatever recommendation I have the most actionable. That you break it down into bite-sized chunks. For example, in What the Plus, I explain, you know, this is how to make an enchanting profile. Step 1, you need an avatar. In an avatar, it needs to be your face. Doesn't need to be your whole body. Doesn't need to be your dog and the sunset and your kids. It needs to be your face, because that's what people want to see. And your face should, you know, using the rule of thirds, you know, you shouldn't be smack dab in the middle. And so I just go down. I hope you agree with some of these theories.
Yeah, it's
so
great
I'm just
photography knowledge.
I'm just going down the list, and then you know you need to write this tagline. And I tell people to pretend tagline. You get on this elevator on the 2nd floor. Okay, not the 30th, the 2nd floor. You're going to the 1st floor. And in that elevator is the hottest babe or the hottest man you ever saw. And I don't care if you're straight or gay, I mean, whatever it is, you're attracted to that person, and this person asks you, what do you do? You have 1 floor to explain what you do. That's the tagline in the profile. And then the scrapbook in Google+, there's a place where you can have 5 pictures. And that's the place you be creative. That's where you show you're into hockey, or you're into photography, or you're into your kids. That's where you let your personality shine, not your avatar. Your avatar should be full frontal face. And so I love these lists. And you know, actually, I have this theory that in 2 seconds, you can tell if a blog post is any good if the blog post has a bulleted or numbered list. That is the single best way you can tell if a blog post represents a lot of thought, because bulleted lists and ordered lists show that the person was organized and broke it down into, you know, bite-sized chunks.
Everybody is writing that down in the audience right now. They're all head down, typing on their phone.
Well, have you ever? No, but seriously, have you ever gone to a blog post and it's like 20 paragraphs of just text, no subheads, no nothing, and it's like stream of consciousness, you know, obviously written with a gold nib Mont Blanc pen on a windswept beach.
And the same thing applies with photos. Like if you just ever go, it's just like this photo looks just only like fractionally different than this one, only fractionally different than this one, and like it's like you haven't edited anything. So show me your best work, right? And that's really what you're saying. Okay, I'll get out.
By the way, do you use Lightroom?
I'm more of an aperture man. Yeah. And you know,
I was going to get some tech support from you. That's why.
We have to be fluent in all the software platforms, given that our line of work. When we sit down next to an art director, creative director, they can tell us what to use, because they need to be using it too. We can trade databases, but I bet on Apple.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I think they both have a lot of great products, but I'm an aperture guy myself. So they were first to play video, for example, within the aperture.
Yeah.
I went to the phones when you were telling these guys how to be, and a great question came in. This question is from Say Hi James, and if you have other questions, now's the time to fire them off. Hashtag CJLive, because we've only got about 10 minutes left in the show. We'll try and get through a bunch of this stuff, Guy. I'm stuck in a business I own, and I'm tired of it. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to start over? Guy Kawasaki.
Wow. I mean,
Say Hi James is asking.
There's a lot of parameters here, like, you know, how are you financially? What kind of business is it in? You know, is it a business that's doomed or not?
I'm going to read into it. Like, everything's just fine, but that's fine is not the way we want to live our lives.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I think that life is too short to not live passionately. And so I love what I do. I really do. I love it.
Are you working right now? Is this working? Are we just hanging out?
Working, being on this set?
Yeah. Or it's just, but this is your life. That's
what I do. It's like, you know the story of the frog and the scorpion?
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, I'm a scorpion. That's what I do. I sting people. So, anyway. Do you know what that story is about?
Frog rides on the back of the scorpion rides on the back of the frog across the pond.
Yeah, and so the scorpion tells the frog, you know, I need to get across the river or whatever, across the pond, and the frog says, well, but if I put you on my back, you're gonna sting me and we'll die. And the scorpion says, well, why would I sting you? If you're carrying me in the water and I sting you, you'll die and I'll drown. So the frog says, all right, makes sense. Gets the scorpion on the back. They take off across the pond, in the middle of the pond. Guess what? The scorpion stings the frog. As the frog is dying, the frog says to the scorpion, why did you sting me? Now we're gonna die. And the scorpion says, I'm a scorpion. That's what I do. So that's what I do.
love it.
I'm a marketer. That's what I do.
But let's fix
So
say hi
anyway,
James
so
problem.
say hi, James. I think that, you know, probably you already know the answer because you asked the question. If you're asking the question, you probably know, you know, you should make a change.
Yep.
I'm not a psychiatrist, but you know,
You are sort of in this show. I feel in the care of Dr. Guy Kawasaki.
yeah,
Do you
sit
all?
on my
That's right.
couch. Yes, I think he should try to
Change
find something that excites his passion.
If that question is in you, you know, then that should let you know that something's up.
Yeah, I think so.
Another question comes in from Elnose AJ. Oh, sorry, that's a lie. This question came in from Royce and D. What's your take on curating content from different websites and then posting it? There's a little bit of a misunderstanding here, I think, because posting it as your own, and then they say and providing credit. So I enjoy referencing other content.
I do that 50 times a day.
Yeah, because that's the goal, is to share information, right? So I think both of us are advocating the sharing and the easy propagation of great content, and providing attribution is great. I mean, I've got a new series on my blog called Emerging Talent, where I'm looking to find emerging photographers, and I want to show 10 of their pictures on my site and then link to their site so you can go find 10 more. And we might steamroll someone's server and, you know, put them out of business for a day, but the idea is to help the world know about other amazing artists. You are in that camp.
I'm big into curation. You know, I used to be a very active blogger. I hardly blog at all anymore because, frankly, I run out of stuff to say. What a concept! But most bloggers run out of stuff to say and they keep blogging. I'm different. So I've switched from creation to curation, and I use, believe it or not, conflict of interest alert. I use a site called Alltop, ALLTOP.com, and Alltop is an aggregation site where we separate things by topic. So if you're into hockey, there's hockey.alltop. At photography.alltop, we find all the best photography feeds, and we put them in one place. We display the last 5 stories, right? So if you wanted to see, you know, what's his name? Kenneth Galbraith? What is it? Ken Rockwell.
Ken Rockwell.
Okay, so you see Chase's blog, you see Ken Rockwell, you see Thomas Hawk, you see Trey Helbig, you see Mark Silver. You know, if you're really into photography, you could have these 50 or 100 blogs bookmarked, and you'd have to go to them one at a time. Sometimes something has changed, sometimes not. But if you go to photography.alltop, we have all the sites, all aggregated, last 5 stories. And so the reason why we built that is because I needed it. I needed it to find a lot of stuff, to constantly be tweeting and Facebooking and Google Plussing. And so what we do is we take the story, we summarize it, we provide a link to the source, because that's intellectually honest thing to do.
Yeah, so let's shift gears for just a second and say, and we'll come to questions back here in just a second, but if we put our entrepreneurial hats on, because all independent artists are entrepreneurs, let's get that straight, let's be honest.
All successful ones.
Yeah, exactly. Alltop, how much did you start it with? This is a
it
great
was
story
about
that you told me once about
15 grand or something like that. You know, today it's much easier to start a company because you use Rackspace or you use, you know, S3, and you don't buy servers anymore. Who buys a server anymore? That's so 1.0. I mean, it's all in the cloud now. So your infrastructure is $1,000 a month, or $5,000 a month. You know, if it's $5,000, if your infrastructure, if you're paying a Rackspace or an Amazon $5,000 a month, it means you're successful. That's the good news about that. So your infrastructure is free or cheap. Use Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and blogging for marketing. You use a bunch of people all over the world freelancing. You don't need commercial real estate. You use them as independent contractors. So we just took care of marketing. We took care of commercial real estate. We took care of infrastructure. I don't know what would you spend money on? I mean, you know, it's like so much cheaper to start a company.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I need to take a question from the audience here. I'd like to say, hey, Megan, we probably need to find some winners of the trip to New York City with yours truly in collaboration and thanks with HP Print. So if we can maybe pick a winner there, that would be great. That's from one of the outstanding quotes. So you have like 90 more seconds to get your quote in. If you
how do you pick the winner?
It's the most engaging tweet or the best tweet of just, it's sort of a cool thing. Like they're actually
who
back
decides?
there. They're actually back there, my crew.
Megan decides?
Megan, Kate, Gerard, they're back there finding the coolest tweet. And that person gets to go, them and a buddy, to New York with me in the not too distant future. Also the Broncolor, the California Sunbounce reflector. So just short time left there. In the meantime, fire away.
So if Twitter is news and Facebook is family and friends and Google Plus is passion, what is Pinterest?
Oh, Pinterest is one of those ideas you look at and you say, why didn't I do that? Seriously,
such a good idea.
I mean, such a good idea.
Such a good idea. Yeah.
Such a good idea. I love Pinterest. I love going there. I don't have an account because I don't know, I'm not connected enough. Yeah, okay, yeah, please.
Something tells me that maybe some people in this audience would love to have you take a peek at their Pinterest. But it's seriously, it's one of those things that's an amazing startup. Right?
Another interesting thing, returning back to your intellectual property question, was I read the T's and C's of Pinterest, and it's kind of like we own everything you just put up there and whatever, right? I mean,
no, you warrant that you have the copyright to post anything that you post.
You're giving them the copyright. That's
Yeah.
what it says in their terms.
Yeah.
But you also, so you give them the copyright and you own the copyright of anything you post, but that sort of defeats the idea of Pinterest of posting something you thought was cool. Like, I think everything on my desktop is cool that I took a picture of. Like, it seems a little bit weird. But again, that goes back to the question that you asked earlier, which is there are so many legal challenges about these new sharing sites. And you know, that's why Larry Lessig is working really hard with the Creative Commons. It's not a problem that's getting solved anytime soon. So it's to each their own. You have to take a risk if you believe in the system. So
don't be paranoid.
Don't be paranoid. That's a great quote. Anybody else in our audience here? I'll go to the phones one more time here and we'll race. I need some winners here pretty soon because we got a couple minutes left in the show. Anybody here? Shoot, let's do this quickly because we got 3 minutes left. Go ahead.
Using Facebook, Google Plus, things like that for marketing, like into my local market. I keep running up against, I have 2,500 friends, I have 500, page likes, and, the stuff I post, the same people are seeing it over and over and over, oh, hey, there's Travis, he's posting photos again. How do you break out of that? How do you reach wider in your market with your social media?
Well, I mean, theoretically, if you're posting such great stuff, such great links and such great contents, people will share it and reshare it and forward it and all this kind of stuff. So one mental model for you is you should post stuff that's so great that people will reshare it. And so the mental test for resharing is I will risk my reputation by sharing something that somebody else sent me, right? Beautiful. That's when you reshare. So the question is, are you posting stuff so good that those 500 people are willing to risk their personal reputation by sharing it with their 500 people? That's the test.
That's a beautiful test. With that, I'm going to announce some winners now.
Okay.
We've been, for the big trip, I got to say that the winner of the HP Print, thank you very much for supporting this, at Nina, give a lot and expect nothing in return. I think that's a beautiful, socially, you think about creativity, socially, all that stuff, win. Congratulations. You and me and one of your friends are going to New York. We'll get back to you with the detail. The folks at Braun are winning. The winner of the Sunbounce reflector is at Kryzenek with a K. If you want to be enchanting, creative, it starts with quality. Mr. Guy Kawasaki said that.
I did.
You did. We got a huge thanks to, let's see what I got, get through a bunch of stuff. If you want to have a chance at being a member of the live audience, sign up in the email newsletter right here. We just notify you of if it's where you find out anything first regarding Chase Jarvis. Right now, there's a blog post up about our last episode here, the Phantom episode, shooting a $150,000 camera at 5,000 frames a second. Check out the blog immediately following this. Next show, April 3rd, with the Lumineers, an amazing band. If you don't know about them, they're going to be here. I predict that the next thing they're going to hit is the Grammy stage. If you watched our We Are Augustine's episode, it's a lot like that. And then Young Hollywood, Mr. Badass himself, Adrian Grenier, philanthropist, actor. You recognize him as the lead from Entourage. He's going to be here with us on the 10th. Phew! Huge thanks to HP. Welcome on board. We're grateful to have you. Looking forward to that film project that we're working on together. Broncolor at Shoot LA. The 28th, if you're down there, go see it. And big thanks to B&H. Round of applause. What's that? Shoot Los Angeles, not Shoot LA. Thanks, Norton. Round of applause for Norton and Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. That was a lot of fun. Good, good,
I'd rather be working up on me. The new to the old, the old to the new.